So good morning, friends. Welcome back to the online learning platform at Department of Civil Engineering. We are back for the course Municipal Wastewater Engineering, which is a part of Public Health Engineering or popularly termed as Environmental Engineering. If you recollect, in the previous session, we had initiated discussion on low-cost municipal wastewater treatment. And in that, we had initiated the interaction with respect to oxidation ditch, which probably among all the low-cost wastewater treatment processes is the expensive one. But when you look at the conventional treatment setup, this is far economical than those. So you very well recollect the construction aspects and the working aspect of that setup, which also are instilled rotors and aerators. So in today's presentation, we will take a step forward, okay, and we will be discussing about stabilization ponds. I will introduce you to the various types, their construction features, the working principles, the various merits and demerits before summarizing and listing the references for your kind perusal. Okay, now when we speak about low cost wastewater treatment, we are basically discussing suspended growth process itself, very similar to what we had discussed in activated sludge process and in the recently discussed oxidation ditch. So today, my friends, we will be discussing about stabilization ponds, aerated lagoons, oxidation ponds. Please note that from literature to literature, from textbook to textbooks, from journals to journals, the word pond and lagoon has been alternatively being used. Okay. Now, what are the criteria or the attributes which credit the term low cost to these treatment facilities? Primarily, it is a design, a very simple design, the simple construction features, the simplicity in its operation. The cost effectiveness comes because of its low maintenance, low energy requirements, and the best attribute is you can easily upgrade them. Relatively and comparatively, you have a greater efficiency when it comes to the removal of the biochemical oxygen demand, your suspended solids, and pathogens. The most important highlight of these systems is their efficiency in removing your fecal coliform bacteria, which is basically present in the human waste. Okay, of course, please do understand that all these systems do have specific merits, specific demerits, and yes, specified design criteria, okay, which is based on the working principle. One most important attribute that we need to understand when it comes to your low cost wastewater treatment is your sludge layer. Okay, the effective volume of the pond, it could be your aeration pond, aerated lagoon, stabilization pond, whatever the system may be. Okay, the effective volume of that system depends on your intensity and your periodicity with which you remove the sludge, because you should be aware that if the sludge accumulates, it will reduce the carrying capacity of the system, it will reduce the effective depth and effective volume of the pond. Apart from all these attributes, the biological conditions also matter. Okay, what form of bacteria or microorganisms are present in the system? Now, when it comes to your classification of your low cost wastewater treatment with respect to stabilization pond, okay, there are three types: aerobic pond, anaerobic pond, and facultative pond. The image what you see below is facultative pond. As I told you, the term pond and lagoon is alternatively used or misplaced. Let's see a small video so that you have a feel of what a stabilization pond looks like. Honestly speaking, when you see a structure like this, when you see a water body like this, what would you think it is? You would definitely think that it's a lake. And had the scale of this system been smaller, you would have thought that it's a pond. So the most important thing that we need to understand is the appearance of these systems gives it a feeling that it's a natural system. And essentially, it is a natural way in which we are purifying the wastewater. But in no lake would you find a structure like this. In no lake would you find a canal like this. If you can hear the sound which is there in the background, that is the indication of the intensity of wind, which is very essential when it comes to aeration process with respect to mixing of air and water, with respect to diffusion of gases. Now, probably when you look at this image or the still in this video, you'll get to know that basically it's wastewater that we are referring to, though it looked like, pristine water from a distance. Even in this system, since you have a step, since you have a cascading system, it will further help in enhancing aeration. So that's the outfall from this lagoon. So friends, that was a very simple representation of your stabilization pond, or as you may put it across as waste stabilization pond. So to be very honest, these waste stabilization ponds are the simplest of all the wastewater treatment techniques which are currently existing for the treatment of a municipal wastewater. As I told you, the advantages are again from the simplicity and reliability of the operation and maintenance. No, there are no machineries. Okay, everything is depending upon the nature itself. Yes, nature never fails, but yeah, we do realize that probably it is very slow, and thereby you might require a greater or a longer detention period. That is why you see a huge area. The moment you require a greater detention period, you tend to consume more land. That is why the entire system was so vast. Okay, and please also note the right biological conditions are very important, and these are considerably affected by attributes such as the wind, okay, the temperature, and the oxygen level. Now, when compared to any system, your waste stabilization pond is most appropriate in case if the land available to you is vast, in case if the land available to you is inexpensive, if the climate is favorable for you. Okay, so under these circumstances, we tend to prefer the waste stabilization pond itself. Now, as you can see, the system was open to atmosphere. Okay, now whether the construction is earthen basin or a man-made basin, it depends on what type of reactor you're talking about. Because in your oxidation ditch, it was a concrete structure. Okay, but most of the waste stabilization ponds are having a earthen basin. Okay, that is earth. Now, again, from type, based on the type of the system, your depth will change, your effective volume will change, and subsequently the detention period also changes. So for few of these systems, the detention period may be few days, and for few of them, it may be a large number of days. With this basic introduction to what a waste stabilization pond is, okay, let's start with the first type. Okay, and that would be your aerobic ponds or aerated ponds. Okay, also you may replace them with the word lagoons. Okay, now if you observe this image very carefully, you can see this is still water, but if you observe here, this pattern what you see here, that is where basically aeration is taking place. So friends, this is a system wherein actually you are aerating it. Okay, probably you're using diffusers or you're using a mechanical aerator. So let me give you some information about this. Friends, your aerated pond is basically also called as high rate aerobic ponds. Okay, and the objective is to always maintain, the design is always to maintain a constant dissolved oxygen level. And remember, this constant dissolved oxygen level has to be maintained throughout the depth. Okay, please remember this. Therefore, they are also called or viewed as turbocharged facultative ponds, that is with add-on oxygen functioning. Okay, basically these aerobic ponds are used for soluble waste, that is the primary effluents, wherein there is possible penetration of sunlight throughout the depth. Please understand, you need to maintain oxygen, dissolved oxygen throughout its entire depth, and you also need to make sure that there is sufficient sunlight which penetrates until the bottom. Okay, that is why you need to make sure that the depth of this pond needs to be shallow. Okay, probably these ponds have a depth of around 0.3 to 0.5 meters, and typically if you're looking at a municipal wastewater, the BOD loading is around around 40 to 120 kg per hectare day. Okay, understand this, if you increase the depth of this tank, then aerobic conditions may become anaerobic. So the design criteria here is the depth itself. Now, please understand, since you are going for aerators, maybe you are going for a mechanical surface aerator, or probably you are going for an air diffuser, the idea is to get the contents mixed. And this mixing of the contents would be periodic. But yes, you may sometimes do it as a complete mix, or you might do it as a partially mix. Now, when it comes to your aerobic pond, okay, how is that oxygen is being supplied here? First and foremost, it is because of your diffusers or your aerators. But apart from this, since there is sunlight, okay, these ponds also will facilitate the growth of algae. And now when algae is present in your wastewater, what does it do? Okay, algae will release oxygen into the water and take carbon dioxide. But where does algae get carbon dioxide from? The microorganisms which are present in the wastewater, they break down the organic matter. When they break down the organic matter, they produce carbon dioxide. Algae takes this carbon dioxide and returns oxygen to the system. Okay, that is why, my friends, this is not just a mechanical system, but you can also see it's a natural system. But let's be very honest, aerobic ponds have not been used widespreadly. See, when you look at the video what I showed you, people who are not native to that location may misinterpret, may consider that it's a natural lake, may tend to endanger their lives by swimming or fishing. Okay, so that kind of threat does exist when it comes to these kind of systems. That is why you don't find it more often. Okay, so let's recap what is happening here. You have in-ground earthen basins. You are going to detain wastewater in this based on the detention period. Okay. Now, as I told you before, your detention period is around 3 to 5 days. How does it work? It depends on the symbiosis with microorganisms, and most importantly, you are allowing their growth by aeration. Let's see a small video to understand this. Now, I want you to observe carefully. This is one of the specific models by a specific company, okay, wherein now you can see the bottom, okay, you can see the bottom of your aerobic pond. So you can see that, it has been constructed as earthen basin. It's an in-ground earthen basin. And now you see how this system is allowing oxygen to enter. See, as I told you, you can go for aerators, which are surface aerators or diffusers. But just look at this animation, how they are supplying oxygen to this entity. So as you can see, you have a compressor, you have a pump, compressed air is being sent, and when this compressed air comes out of the nozzles, they come out as fine air bubbles. So you can see how the air is being sucked. And so when these air bubbles are coming out, they literally help in aeration. They help in oxidation. They help in keeping the water fresh. Now look at the depth. It is very shallow. This system cannot perform well for a deep entity. It has to be a shallow. Okay, you cannot go for more than half a meter depth. And subsequently, you require vast land. All right, let's continue. So I can also go for these kind of systems wherein you've got plate diffusers which are placed at the bottom, or I can go for mechanical surface aerators which have turbines which rotate. Okay. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the system? As I previously discussed with this, the advantage is that you do not have much of an issue when it comes to your sludge removal. Okay, and considering the fact that it's a shallow system, it will ease in the your operation. But when it comes to disadvantage, again, the cost of land, the availability of land, the expanse of land, the maintenance attribute with respect to aerators, and yes, you do have environmental drawbacks, and these environmental drawbacks are probably, when you consider the fact that, it might attract, probably birds, migratory species, and also considering the fact that, if you have algae, you need to ensure that the algae is not allowed to grow so much that it covers the entire lake. Then the entire system will collapse. Something very similar to eutrophication. Okay, more or less it's the operation and maintenance issue. Let's see a small video for that.
Wastewater treatment lagoons are widespread in the US with more than 6,000 plants in use. Especially in areas with a low population density, lagoons are proven to be a good solution as they require only little construction and operation cost. However, changing influent values due to population growth, new industries or other effects can cause an overloading of the lagoon. The most typical signs of an overloaded lagoon are excessive sludge production and odors. Increasing BOD and TSS influence result in undigested sludge, which is settling to the bottom of the lagoon and taking up valuable space.
Yeah, so in case if you do not remove the sludge on time, the sludge will constantly accumulate. Okay, it will reduce the effective depth. Okay, it also will reduce the effective volume, and subsequently not only that, but this sludge also, will get decomposed, resulting in the production of bad odor.
This leads to slow anaerobic processes, so that more and more sludge is built up over time. When the sludge starts to float and odors appear, the lagoon has turned over.
Now, this is because the system has got converted from aerobic to anaerobic, because as the sludge accumulates, there is more anaerobic bacteria which become predominant. Okay, and when that happens, you are not having gases such as nitrogen oxide or carbon dioxide coming out. Rather, it is ammonia or hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide and ammonia both are associated with bad odor. And not only that, your ammonia will tend to push up the sludge, okay, as it says floating sludge or blanket sludge.
Color changes. A healthy, efficient wastewater lagoon has a clear, sparkling green, blue, or brown color. A firm blue-green color, however, indicates increased algae growth. Excessive algae growth prevents sunlight from reaching deeper areas of the lagoon.
So, as I told you, if you do not remove the algae constantly, and if the algae grows throughout the surface, first and foremost, it will not allow sunlight to enter. Okay. Secondly, air will not mix. So dissolved oxygen level will reduce, and again the system will get converted from aerobic to anaerobic. Something very similar to eutrophication as I'd expressed before.
So that oxygen levels decrease. In summer times, the lagoon might also have a green leafy covering of duckweed. Duckweed has the same effect as excessive algae growth. Foam building. White odorless foams on the surface of the lagoon are normally an indication for detergents or other foam-forming materials in the influent. On the other hand, brown dark foam is often a consequence of a wrong FM ratio. All described indicators of overloaded lagoons go along with changing DO, dissolved oxygen, and pH levels. Therefore, the DO and pH levels of lagoons should be occasionally checked, e.g. with portable testing kits. In most cases, increased aeration will correct an overloaded lagoon, as water levels in a lagoon plant can normally not be lowered.
But do remember that when you speak about excessive aeration, that also means that there would be more facilitation for algae to grow. So algae removal is also essential.
Fixed aeration systems are very difficult to install, and lagoon bypasses are expensive. Therefore, retrievable diffuser aeration systems, as supplied by AET, are a cost-effective solution for oxygen-deficient lagoons.
So further, they were going to speak about their model. Okay. Yeah. So now let's move to the next type, and that's your stabilization ponds. Okay. Now I want you to observe very carefully with respect to your stabilization ponds. It's a beautiful representation. You just observe carefully. Okay. Look at the name of the chemicals: methane, oxygen, carbon dioxide, ammonia, nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen trioxide, okay, again an oxide of nitrogen, nitrogen gas. Okay, look at the bacteria. You've got nitrifying bacteria, you've got denitrifying bacteria, you've got nitrogen fixing bacteria. Literally, you've got nitrogen cycle taking place here. Okay, you also have photosynthesis occurring, you have respiration taking place. One is in the daytime, the other is in the night time. You can see plants, you can see algae, you can see microscopic organisms, okay, which are also photosynthetic in nature. Okay, you can also see oxygen and methane. If you come bottom, you can see sludge. So friends, what is happening here is, if you're looking at this system, you're looking at sediment oxygen demand in this zone, the anaerobic zone. You're looking at a facultative zone here, wherein you have got nitrogenous biochemical oxygen demand. And you're looking at the top, you're looking at aerobic zone, okay, which is carbonaceous biochemical oxygen demand. Let's understand this better with the further slides. Now, moving on, see, let's try to understand one by one the three types of your stabilization pond. Let's start with the first one, which is your oxidation pond. Now, obviously, probably when it comes to your size, it's far smaller than your lagoons. Okay, what we need to understand is in oxidation pond, it's essentially a natural system. Okay, it is a shallow depth, it's obvious, because we want it to remain aerobic. Okay, there is zero maintenance, there is no need of any skill supervision. Okay, the capital cost is majorly only 20 to 30% of the conventional plants. But what we need to understand here is, this is only suitable for hot climate, wherein in at least your 365 days, okay, that is in each year, you must have at least 200 sunny days. Okay, and this is only possible for small cities or small towns where the land is affordable. Okay, but please remember, it is not flexible. That is, in case if your wastewater has a variation in the organic loading, then it can impact this entire system. And now that you're talking about a natural system, now that you're talking about non-usage of aerators, this can definitely lead to issues such as the mosquitoes, okay, which can lead to malaria, and it can also, be prevalent with respect to bad odors. So my friends, if you really compare the previous system and this system, the difference is in the previous system, we had used aerators, okay, in your aerobic pond, in your aerated pond, or your aerobic or aerated lagoons. In that system, there was aerator used. But in this kind of stabilization pond, in this type of stabilization pond, it's a natural system. Again, it is shallow. Okay, everything remains same. The only difference is you do not provide it aerators. You tend to allow the degradation to happen in a natural manner. Now, let's move on to the second type of stabilization pond, and that's your anaerobic system or your anaerobic pond. Please remember, these are specific and these are majorly used to encounter the wastewater which have strong food materials, or let's say agricultural wastewater. Basically, your anaerobic pond is meant to treat organic matter which comes with a heavy load. Okay, now what we do not realize is, these anaerobic ponds, they're often used as preliminary treatment. They're used as preliminary treatment for high strength wastewater. And again, I'm telling you, these kind of wastewater comes from food processing industries, which are very rich in fats and proteins. But also please note, these anaerobic ponds can only partially treat the wastewater, and therefore, after you find the anaerobic pond, it is most obvious that you might find the aerobic process after that. So you might find these systems in series, first anaerobic and then second aerobic. Please note that, just by having anaerobic system, you cannot discharge the treated effluent into any water body. Now, typically in your anaerobic pond, there are three identifiable zones. I'm talking about the basic design of an anaerobic pond. First is a scum layer, okay? That is the one which is floating at the top. Second is a supernatant layer. Now, that is basically the wastewater which is actually treated and is just below the scum. Scum is a floating part. Okay, below that, the supernatant layer. And at the bottom, you have your sludge layer, wherein all the settling and sedimentation has taken place. Please understand, this kind of system requires a longer time. The detention period is about 20 to 60 days, and its range is around 2.5 to 5 meters. Since you're talking about anaerobic process, okay, there is acidogenesis taking place, methanogenesis taking place. In simple words, there is fermentation, there is production of acids and production of methane happening due to the presence of methanobacter and methanococcus. Since you have a distinct sludge being produced, sediment oxygen demand also happens here. Okay, and please remember, these are very deep structures. Why is that they are deep? So that the sunlight cannot penetrate far, so that the air cannot mix throughout the entire depth. Okay, having said this, please remember, this is still a partial treatment. Okay, and also understand, since you're talking about anaerobic process, since it is anaerobic digestion, if you want the system to be effective, okay, it is understood that the temperature should definitely be more than 15 degrees Celsius. Okay, and please note all the microorganisms that you're referring to, okay, they are facultative microorganisms and strictly anaerobic. You will find the facultative in this zone, okay, and you will find the strictly anaerobes in this zone, okay, and they're highly specific and sensitive to pH. Now let's go to the next one, the most important. As you've seen probably in the slide before, I showed you a typical stabilization pond. When I spoke to you about a stabilization pond, I had indicated the various organisms present. Okay, now after I showed you the stabilization pond, I showed you the first type, which was an oxidation pond where there was no anaerobic condition. Then in the last slide, I showed you the second type of stabilization pond, which is basically anaerobic pond, wherein you have only anaerobic process prevalent. My friends, this is the third system, facultative lagoons or facultative pond, wherein you have three processes simultaneously happening: aerobic process, anaerobic process, and the facultative process. Okay, let's have some information with respect to this. What we need to understand is, when it comes to your facultative lagoons or your ponds, these are actually not new. They were existing before also, and this is basically something we term as biomimicry, by observing the nature, something, you know, which our ancestors previously did. Okay, now yes, what we need to understand is, when it comes to a stabilization pond, these can be useful not just for treating your municipal wastewater, but they can also be used for treating industrial wastewater. Having said this, please remember both of them should be organic in nature, not toxic or inorganic. Yes, they do have a restriction. Okay, since we are talking about facultative process, you can't refer this as a technology for cities. Okay, this is majorly for your small communities wherein the wastewater is biodegradable. Again, please understand, those locations which have frequent sunny days, more adequate sunlight, okay, they have a tropical climate, only in those places this kind of system can be prevalent. The capital cost, when it comes to these, is much lesser when it comes to your conventional treatment. But yes, since it's a combination of aerobic and anaerobic process, the detention period can extend up to a month. Okay, now since this is a combination of aerobic and anaerobic process, neither it is shallow like your oxidation pond, nor it is deep like your anaerobic pond. It is between both of them, and it is between 1.2 to 1.5 meters. Okay, now how exactly does the treatment take place in this system? I want you to observe this image very, very carefully. Okay, look at this system. So basically it's another representation of the beautiful image I showed you before. So I have sunlight, I have wind. So sunlight will penetrate the entire depth as much as possible, but not beyond a specific depth. You have wind. So when there is wind, there is mixing of air and wastewater, diffusion of gases. So what is happening in the wastewater? In the wastewater, in the top zone, there are aerobic bacteria. Okay, in the middle zone, there are facultative bacteria, and in the bottom zone, there are anaerobic bacteria. Okay, now we need to understand that this is a symbiosis which is occurring. You have algae and you have microorganisms. The organic wastewater, the organic matter in the wastewater is broken down by the bacteria. Okay, now if it's an aerobic bacteria, when it breaks it down, it produces carbon dioxide. Have a look at this. When the bacteria breaks down the organic matter, if it is aerobic in nature, it is carbon dioxide. Again, if it's anaerobic bacteria, it will produce methane, it will produce hydrogen sulfide, it will produce ammonia. Okay, now basically these act as necessary elements for the other entities. For instance, carbon dioxide is required by algae to grow. So what does algae do? Algae takes this carbon dioxide and returns oxygen. Okay, fine. In this manner, due to exertion of carbonaceous biochemical oxygen demand nitrogenous biochemical oxygen demand, and sediment oxygen demand. All the organic matter, all the waste impurities, organic in nature, it is converted from a complex form into carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and methane. Please note these are gases, and these gases will escape into the atmosphere. Okay. Now, since you're talking about methane, yes, there is a disadvantage because it can explode, it can catch fire. When you talk about hydrogen sulfide, it has a pungent odor. Okay, since you're talking ammonia, it can tend to push the entire sludge up. So these are the maintenance issues, and please note these have to be away from the residences or locations. I also want to give you some add-on knowledge, and that is with respect to maturation ponds. See, this is not in a curriculum, but I want you to understand this. These maturation ponds are sometimes called as tertiary maturation ponds or low rate stabilization ponds. And these are actually designed to provide secondary effluent see, they're actually designed to provide treatment to your secondary effluent in order to remove microorganisms. So you may consider them as a polishing treatment. Okay, so probably what happens, you may find these maturation ponds at the end of the system. So you probably will have anaerobic system, then aerobic system, and then finally you will get maturation pond. The ideology here is removal of pathogens, okay, removal of certain nutrients if it has not been removed before, say nitrogen or phosphorus. Okay, here the depth would be around 1 to 1.5 meters, and the detention extends up to 20 days. Okay, and please note the design, the size, and numbers. Okay, they are decided in many parts of the world based on the need for removing pathogens from a treated wastewater. So, if you talk about a conventional process, what is happening? We go for disinfection, we go for chlorination. You might consider this as an alternative to that, but not as a replacement. I repeat this. You might consider this as an alternative to your disinfection process, but this is not a replacement. Okay. Now, let's move further. Let's look at this. This should give you an idea wherein you have an anaerobic pond, then an aerobic pond, a facultative pond. Finally, you have a maturation pond. So yes, it's a polishing process. Okay, now friends, this is how you have maturation pond. You have them in series. Okay, you have them one after other. Now this again depends on the design attributes. Okay, you can have the facultative pond first, and then you can have the maturation ponds, or you can have the anaerobic pond, then the facultative pond, and the maturation ponds. Please note it all depends on what is your requirement. Okay, so I'll repeat and summarize. These are the various design criteria which affects your pond reaction: dissolved oxygen, the microbial presence, settlement of sludge, the rate of removal of sludge, the environmental attributes such as the temperature, the sunlight, okay, and of course, what are the basic characteristics of your wastewater, and the fluctuation in the hydraulic loading rate and the organic loading rate. Please remember that when you speak about stabilization ponds, you can have them in combinations, in series. You can have anaerobic first, facultative second, aerobic. Okay, now this all depends on the basic characteristics of your wastewater. So friends, what did we learn today? We understood about aerated lagoons. Then further we learned about the types of stabilization pond, that is oxidation pond, anaerobic pond, and facultative pond. We understood the simple construction, the simple working principle. We understood something about the symbiosis that is existing between microorganisms and algae, essentially a natural process. And yes, everything has advantages and disadvantages. Let's summarize this with a small video. The moment you say 5 meters, it is understood that these are anaerobic ponds. Why do you call something as facultative? Because in facultative, you do find the presence of aerobic bacteria and anaerobic bacteria. They are not strict aerobes or strict anaerobes. These are those which can survive in the presence or absence of oxygen. The green layer, what you see is the algae. Please note that this comes at the end of all other treatments. This is a polishing treatment, and this is essentially to remove certain nutrients and to remove the pathogens. So, friends, I believe that this is a good recap of the presentation, and these are the references that I've gone through for today's class. And in the next class, that is Tuesday, we shall be discussing with respect to sludge treatment. So whatever wastewater is being treated, eventually, one form of it is produced as sludge. Okay, and whether it's a primary clarifier, a secondary clarifier, okay, whatever it might be. So these sludges need to be disposed of in a safe manner. So we shall discuss this in the subsequent class. So I thank you for your kind patience and hearing. And now I leave the forum open for any queries and further discussion. Thank you.